Leimert Park, for many people in Los Angeles, is more than just a neighborhood. It's known for its history, its culture, its music, and a community where neighbors have known each other for generations. But on one quiet street, that sense of community would be shattered. On May 21st, 2018, Los Angeles police responded to a home on the 3900 block of South Bronson Avenue for what began as a welfare check. No one would expect what officers were about to find. Inside the house, 3 people were dead: 83-year-old William Carter, 79-year-old Orsie Carter, and 65-year-old Phillip Steven White. 3 generations of one family gone. At first, investigators had more questions than answers. Who would do something like this? Why these victims? And what happened inside this home? Those answers wouldn't come immediately. But as detectives began processing the scene, they started finding pieces to the puzzle that would eventually lead to one person.
Gone now the yellow tape and the squad cars we encountered here last night around midnight as police began their urgent search for a woman who they hope can help them find out why 3 people were killed here and why.
A clearer picture started to emerge. The 3 victims was found together inside the bathroom of the home. Investigators determined that all 3 had suffered from blunt force trauma. At least 2 of the victims had also been shot. Then detectives noticed something else. There was no sign of forced entry. There was no indication that someone had broken into the house. Wallets and other valuables were still inside. Car keys was left behind. To investigators, that suggests robbery was not the obvious motive. That changed the direction of the investigation almost immediately. If someone hadn't forced their way into the home, there was a good chance that the victims knew the person who came through the front door. Detectives had different questions. Who had access to the house? Who had recently been around Phillip White? The answer to that question would quickly lead investigators to a woman named Nancy Amelia Jackson. As detectives continued processing the evidence, another part of the investigation was already underway. They began talking to family members, friends, and neighbors. Their goal was simple: figuring out who had recently been around Phillip White.
Mother, her vehicle was left overnight and she never spends a night there. So that raised a red flag.
Mr. White, that was my neighbor, my buddy, real good friend of mine. I'm missing.
I don't know how to feel because I didn't see the body, so I'm not even believing it's real, to tell you the truth, because I just saw him Sunday.
One name kept coming up: Nancy Amelia Jackson. According to investigators and friends who knew Phillip White, Jackson was a longtime acquaintance of White who recently had re-entered his life. White had allowed her to stay at his home temporarily after she fell on hard times. Friends said she talked about moving to Las Vegas, but she never left. Investigators also learned that Phillip White's mother, Orsie Carter, had become concerned about the living arrangement. According to White's childhood friend Ralph Tilley, Orsie Carter called him just days before the killings to ask about Jackson. 2 days later, White told Tilley he had the situation under control and that Jackson had agreed to move out. At that point, detectives still hadn't publicly accused Jackson of the murders. Instead, they announced they wanted to locate her for questioning. On May 23, 2018, LAPD described Jackson as a material witness and investigators were trying to find her. At the time, police also said they was concerned for her safety because they still haven't yet determined exactly what had happened inside the home. From the outside, it may seem like investigators already knew the answer, but they didn't. Not yet. They still had to follow the evidence. And within hours, that investigation would take another major turn. The search didn't last long.
Well, from acquaintance to murder suspect, police have found the woman they say is responsible for a triple murder. An elderly couple and their adult son were found dead.
Less than 24 hours after asking the public for help locating Nancy Amelia Jackson, the investigators reached a major turning point. On May 24, 2018, Los Angeles police announced that 55-year-old Nancy Amelia Jackson had been arrested. According to LAPD, she was taken to custody in the Culver City area and then booked on 3 counts of murder. For investigators, this marked an important milestone, but it didn't mean the case was over. An arrest is based on probable cause. A conviction requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Those are 2 very different standards. The following day, Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office formally charged Jackson with 3 counts of murder. Prosecutors also alleged a special circumstance of multiple murder, an allegation that carried the possibility of the most severe penalty under California law if proven. Even with an arrest, many questions still remain unanswered. Police had identified the suspect, but investigators had not publicly explained exactly what they believe had happened inside the home or what they believe motivated the killings. Those answers would emerge slowly through years of court proceedings. For the White and Carter family, the arrest brought a measure of relief. A suspect was in custody, but the justice would not come quickly. The case will remain in the court system for nearly 6 years before reaching its conclusion. After the arrest, the investigation gave way to the legal process. Over the next several years, the case moved through the Los Angeles County Superior Court. Like many homicide cases, there was hearings, motions, and repeated court appearances before the case was finally resolved. For the victim's family, those years was filled with waiting. Every court date meant returning to a case that had already changed their lives forever. But the question remained the same. How would this case end? That answer came nearly 6 years after the killings. On April 25, 2024, Nancy Amelia Jackson pleaded guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. Under the negotiated plea agreement, she agreed to a sentence of 75 years to life in state prison.
61-year-old Nancy Jackson pleading guilty to the 2018 triple murders on the heels of a plea deal that could put her behind bars for 75 years to life. Gilbert Wright, who is not only a family member of the victims, but also an L.A. County Deputy District Attorney, saying Jackson should be facing life without the possibility of parole in a jury trial.
By pleading guilty, there would be no trial, no jury would hear weeks of testimony, no witness would take the stand. Instead, the case would move directly toward sentencing. For some members of the victim family, the guilty plea brought relief. It meant they would no longer have to wait for the criminal case to reach a conclusion. For others, it raised different questions. Was this enough? On May 21, 2024, the White and Carter family returned to court one final time. The Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Ronald Cohen sentenced Nancy Amelia Jackson to 75 years to life in state prison, consistent with the plea agreement she had entered in the month before. As part of the agreement, Jackson also waived credit for the time she had already served in custody since 2018. For the court, the sentence brought the criminal case to a close. For the family, it was an opportunity to speak directly to the people they had lost. Phillip White's daughter, Nicole Gills, told the court she was there for her father and grandparents the only way she knew. She added, "I loved them and I missed them." Phillip White's brother, Terry Carter, spoke about the months leading up to the killings. He told the court that Nancy Jackson had originally asked to store a few boxes at the house. According to Terry Wright, that arrangement eventually changed and Jackson began staying there. He also said that Phillip White had planned for her to move out before the killings occurred.
She was never a caregiver. My brother had extended mercy to her and offered her a place to stay.
Another family member, Gilbert Wright, who also served as a Los Angeles County District Attorney, told the court he believed Jackson should never be released from prison. Outside the courtroom, he described the killings as a cold, callous, and brutal execution. He also expressed concern that California's elderly parole law someday make Jackson eligible to seek parole.
I can just tell you that justice was not done. It wasn't done. Everybody knows that there's this elder statute out there that says if you're over 50 and you've served 20 continuous years in jail, you can come up for parole.
Before the hearing concluded, Judge Cohen had a message for the future parole board that might one day review the case. The words were brief: "Don't be stupid." With that, the criminal case that had begun nearly 6 years ago was officially over. But for the White and Carter family, the sentence marked the end of a court case, not the end of their loss. Today, life in South Bronson has moved forward. Cars still pass by. Neighbors still walk their dogs. Children still play in Leimert Park. But for one family, May 21st, 2018 will never simply become another date on the calendar. Nancy Amelia Jackson will spend the rest of her life in prison unless she's granted parole in the future. But those sentences can restore what was taken from William Carter, Orsie Carter, and Phillip Steven White. The case is closed, but the loss remains.